Hello, Algebra 1. Welcome to your second day of taking notes on NAGS. After each of these first couple slides, make sure you're pausing the video and making sure your notebook looks exactly like my notebook. So first, let's open to page 2 of your OMG. Open to page 2 and check and make sure your table of contents look exactly like mine, meaning page 22 is multiple representations, and in parentheses this is NAGS, N-A-G-S. Pause the video and make yours look exactly like mine. Okay, you've paused your video, you've updated your table of contents. Next, you're going to flip to page 23. You should already have notes very similar to this on page 22. I want you to pause the video and make sure your page 23 looks exactly like my screen. Page 23. Make sure you put all of the sections in there. So our problem today is all about wedding cake design. So a wedding cake design has a base layer that is 5 inches tall, and each additional layer on top of the base is 3 inches tall. We want to show the relationship between the number of additional layers, n, and the height of the cake, n. So right off the bat, we can see that the problem that was given to us is in word form. It's in sentences. It's a story problem. Since this is in sentence form, S, we need to make sure to copy this problem down in the S of NAGS. So don't make sure today you're writing everything in the correct spot. So first, pause your video now and copy down the word problem that's in sentence form in the S portion of your multiple representation. So right here, you're writing out your entire story problem in sentence 4. Pause the video and do that. Okay, so you've written down your problem that's in sentence form under S of NAGS. So what we need to do now is, remember, sometimes we can draw a picture. So if I read this problem about cake design, I can definitely draw a picture of cakes. So we know that N stands for the number of additional layers, which means every cake is going to have a base, and for every additional we're going to add on 3 inches. So we're going to draw a couple pictures. So these pictures we draw are going to go down below in the S box. So right here is where we're drawing our pictures. So let's say our cake has 1 additional layer. So that means if N represents additional layer, what would the picture for N equals 1 look like? So every cake is going to have a base layer that's 5 inches tall. So I'm going to draw my base layer. So this is my base layer. And I know that this is 5 inches tall. N equals 1 additional layer because N is additional layer. So I'm going to add on 1 additional layer to my cake. That 1 additional layer, it tells us, is 3 inches tall. So if I have 1 additional layer, that means the height of my cake, my H, is 8 inches. Okay, let's draw the next one. So let's say now N is equal to 2. So that means I have my base layer of 5, and additionally I have 2 layers on top, each 3 inches tall. So again, I'm going to draw my base layer. Here's my base layer. I know my base layer is 5 inches tall, and I have 2 additional layers. So I have 1 additional layer, 2 additional layers. Each additional layer is 3 inches tall, so I'm going to write 3, 3. If I have 2 additional layers and my N is 2, then that means the height of my cake is going to be 5 plus 3 plus 3. So 5, 8, 11 inches tall. Okay, let's do another one. So let's say I have 3 additional layers on my cake. Remember, additional, so I already have a base. All of my cakes have a base that's 5 inches. And now I need to add 3 additional layers. So 1, 2, 3 additional layers, each of which are 3 inches tall. If my base is 5 and I have 3 3-inch additional layers, that means my total height is going to be 14. 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I have a height of 14. Okay, we could keep going on and on and on. I think 3 is plenty good to stop. Remember, this is our figure. This is a picture, so you need to pause your video now and add your drawing to sometimes a picture under the S. Pause the video and add that in. Alright, so up next, we've already done our S. Let's check that off. We've done our S. Let's check off our picture. So next we have N. N. And N stands for numerical. So we're going to create a table and a set of points to represent our cake problem. So I'm going to draw a table. I'm going to draw a table. On the left side, what we are picking is the number of layers. So I'm going to label that. My left side is number of additional layers. My right side, which is my Y values, my range, this is the height of the cake. And finally, in this middle section, we're going to call this our process. So this is how we're getting from a number of additional layers to the entire height of the cake. So if we go back and look at our pictures and make sure we're writing this in N. This is our numerical, so we should have a nice big table there. So for N equals 1, if we look up, if we have 1 layer of cake, we know we have our base plus the additional. So I have 5 for the base plus 3 for the additional layer of cake, which means the total height of my cake is going to be 8. If we look at our second figure that we drew, N equals 2, so we have 2 additional layers on top of our base. So I'm going to have the base of my cake plus 3 plus 3. But instead of writing plus 3 plus 3, we're just going to write plus 3 times 2. Because 2 is the number of layers additional. So this means 5 plus 3 times 2, we said, was 11. So 2 additional layers gives us a cake that's 11 inches high. Okay, next one. N is 3. So 3 additional layers to our cake. 3 additional layers to our cake. We have a base of 5 plus 3 times, now we have 3 layers. So we're going to do 3 times 3 because N is 3. So the total height of my cake, when I have 3 additional layers, is 14 inches tall. Okay, so we can start to see a pattern. So I know we didn't draw a picture for 4 additional, but let's do it. We know we have a base of 5 plus 3 inches for each additional layer, and we know we have 4 of them, so we're going to multiply 3 times 4. So we get 5 plus 12 gives us a height of 17 inches. Okay, so let's write this as a rule. So if I have n number of additional layers, then the formula we can think of for finding the height of the cake is going to be that base layer of 5 plus 3 inches times whatever number layer we have. So if we have 6 layers, we'd put a 6 in. If we had 10 layers, we'd put a 10 in. And we know this is always going to give us the height, or h, of the cake. So as a reminder, remember the left side here, these are our inputs. These are our inputs, also known as our x values, which we call this the domain. Our right side, the height of the cake, these are our outputs. Okay, in other words, these are our y values of our points, which is called the range. Okay, so we've created our numerical table. We also need to make our points. So under n as well, we need to put in all of our points that we created. So let's look. We said 1, 8. We have 1, 8, 2, 11, 3, 14, 4, 17. And a general rule is our points are n, h. Number of layers, height, which is the same as our x and y values. Okay, so we have all of our points. We've created a table. This is the numerical representation of our story problem. Okay, so pause the video and make sure you write everything that I have on my screen in your N box. Okay, so you've written down all of this under N. So we're going to move on to our next box, which is A. So we've done S, we've drawn the picture, we've done N. So next, we're going to do A. The A of NAGS stands for the algebraic equation. So we need to take the table we made above, and we need to figure out how can we turn this into an algebraic equation. And here's a little hint. The reason we made this generic rule at the bottom of our table is because that's actually exactly our formula. So to represent this as an algebraic rule or an equation, I know that I take 5 plus 3 times n equals h. In other words, what this means is I take my 5-inch base plus 3 inches times however many additional layers I have, and this is going to equal the height of the cake. Okay, so this isn't enough for algebraic equation. We have our equation, but we need to make sure that we know what n and h stand for. So underneath, you always need to make sure to write what is n and what is h. So n stands for the number of additional cake layers. And we know H stands for the height of the cake. And we know that based on our problem, this is in inches. Remember, units are super important. We don't want the reader to think this is in feet, because an 8-foot tall cake would be enormous. Okay, so this is everything you need for your algebraic equation. You need your equation, and you need to describe what your variables are. So all of this is going to go inside of your A in NAGS. So all of this goes in here. Again, take a second, pause the video, and make sure you copy down this entire thing, everything I wrote in A of NAGS, algebraic equation. Alright, so you have completed and copied down your algebraic equation or algebraic rule into your box. We have one left to do. So as you can see, we've done our sentence. We've drawn the picture. We've created a table and points. We've even created a rule, which means we only have one thing left to do, and that's G. We need to take this and represent it as a graph. So the first thing I'm going to do is, because, hint, hint, we're going to use Desmos to help us graph this. I need to make a little baby table of the points I found in my N. So So I'm going to make a little table. And I'm going to copy in the points that I got in my n. So if we scroll up, we had 1, 8, 1, 8, 2, 11, 2, 11. We had 3, 14. And we had 4, 17. Okay, once I have my table, that means it's time to go put it in Desmos. Put my table in Desmos, and that's going to help us draw our graph. So I'm going to split my screen, and I'm going to go over to Desmos, and I'm going to put in my table so I can make a nice graph. So I'm going to add a table, and I'm going to type it in. 1, 8, 2, 11, 3, 14, and 4, 17. Okay? After you put that in, make sure you click on your magnifying glass. Our magnifying glass is what's going to help us draw a pretty picture of this. So I'm going to click on my magnifying glass, and what it does is it gives us a nice graph that we can just copy right down into our notes. So I am going to draw an XY coordinate plane like this. Okay, and I'm going to copy down my X and Y axis exactly how it looks. So I'm going to do 0 all the way up to 6. I'll put this in 0 all the way up to 6. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to copy the y-axis down exactly how it looks. 5, 10, 15, and 20. So I've copied down my table so it looks just like the one I see over here. And now I'm going to copy down all of my points onto my graph. So my first point, 1, 8, 1, 8. So I'm going to do my best job, and I'm going to go over 1, up about 8, which I think is right about there. Second point is 2, 11. So I'm going to go to my table and go over 2, up to 11, and do my very, very best to draw that point. Right about there. I got 3, 14, so I'm going to go put that. 3 up to 14. And the last one, 4, 17. So I'm going to go over to 4, up to 17. It looks just about like that. And you can see my graph, although it's not perfect, looks almost like Desmos. And that is my graph. Now, when we do graphs, we need to make sure that we label it. Okay, so along the bottom here are my n values. And remember, these, the n represented the number of additional layers. My y-axis, which was h, stands for, I'm running out of room, the height of the cake. And this is in inches. We also need to make sure we add a title, so we could call this the cake problem. The cake problem. Okay, so I have created a table. I have taken that table, put it into Desmos, clicked my magnifying glass, and copied down the graph, making sure to always label it and give it a title, and make sure you have that copied down in to your G of NAGS. Now, there's one more thing we have to think about, okay? So right now, I have 4 points graphed on my cake problem. The question is, are we going to connect these dots or not connect these dots? So these can be one of two things. They can either be continuous or not continuous. Okay? So we need to ask ourselves, are we allowed to have 1.5 extra, or 2.5 extra, or 3.5 extra? No, we can't have half a layer of cake. Since we can't have half a layer, then we cannot connect these dots. We cannot connect these dots. So this is not continuous. So we would leave them not connected. Okay, so now you should pause the video and make sure you have everything copied down. Everything copied down. So we have done the sentence, the figure. We put in a table in the points, the algebraic equation, and we just finished our graph. So pause the video and make sure you've done everything. You've just finished your second NAGS problem.